Hi, I'm Melissa, and welcome to this month's Live from at the Reagan Library. Remember, we do these on the first Wednesday of every month. Now, as you know, a woman never tells her age, but I can tell you I have worked here at the Reagan Foundation for over 20 years. And in that time, I have had the privilege of seeing firsthand many of the objects and photographs and documents that are here at the Reagan Library, both on display and in our archives. See, when you come to the Reagan Museum and you visit our galleries, you are seeing the smallest subset of what we actually have here in our holdings. Here at the Reagan Library, again, in the archives, we have over 60 million pages of documents. We have over 1.6 million photographs. We have 500,000 feet of motion picture film and tens of thousands of audio and videotape from the presidential years. We also have over 60,000 objects, and those items are just relating to the 8 years that Ronald Reagan was president of the United States. We also have so many items from pre and post-presidential, as well as many items from Ronald Reagan's time as governor of California. So we thought it might be fun in today's Live From to share with you some of my favorite artifacts and objects and different items that we have here, not just on display in the Reagan Museum that you would see if you came and visited, but also in our collections as well. Now, as always, I will be live chatting with you, so if you're watching live on Facebook or on YouTube, go to that chat box, not the comment box, but the chat box. Simply put in your name and where you're watching so I can say hello or ask a question. I'm going to be going to the screens probably 5 or 6 times throughout this live cast, so don't be shy. If you watch these, you know that's my favorite part. So we're going to start with some of my favorite objects that are actually on display in the Reagan Museum. And the first one was quite easy for me to pick. We call it the Amalfi Valentine. See, in 2005, the foundation received a phone call. There was a gentleman, he was in real estate, and he was helping to liquidate a home on Amalfi Drive in the Pacific Palisades. And he knew that that home used to belong to the Reagans in the 1950s. And while he was in the backyard clearing brush, he sort of moved a bush aside and cleared it up. And in the ground, in the concrete of the backyard, he saw sort of a carving of a heart with the initials RR and NR in it. He reached out to the foundation to see if he could actually return that to Mrs. Reagan. He got permission from the person buying the house. He literally cut it out of the backyard. It weighs 60 pounds. And he came up to the Reagan Library and presented it to Mrs. Reagan. Following that meeting, she put out a press statement. Mrs. Reagan put out a press statement, and she said that she remembers when the president drew that heart and the initials, and she was so happy to see it again. So that's one of my just all-time favorite artifacts here we have on display. Now, going to another favorite one of mine, also in the museum galleries. This is in our Morning in America gallery. Now, the Morning in America gallery is our gallery dedicated to the week surrounding President Reagan's passing, beginning with the day he passed through the 6 or 7 days up until the day that he was actually buried here at the Reagan Library. Most of that gallery is video focused, but we have a final case with actual objects. It has things like the riderless boots that were in the horse for the caisson. It has the bugle that played taps here at the funeral services, and it has the Blair House guest book. Now, if you don't know, Blair House is the hotel, the residence used for White House VIPs and guests, and it's where Mrs. Reagan stayed during the time she was in Washington, D.C. for the national funeral. And at the Blair House, there was a guest book, and that's where she was greeting heads of state. Then Prince Charles, Margaret Thatcher, Mikhail Gorbachev, Brian Mulroney, and people were signing the guest book. And in our case, in our gallery, we have the guest book open to the page that Margaret Thatcher signed. And she simply wrote, "Thou good and faithful servant," which I think so remarkably describes their relationship that they had, their friendship. The words are so fitting, which is why it's one of my favorite objects here on display. Now I'm going to do one more object that is actually here on display in the galleries, and I'm going to go to the screen. So this is your warning. Go to those chat boxes, your name and where you're watching from to say hello or ask a question. Now, the next item I want to talk about is in our Heroes Gallery. The Heroes Gallery, again, a permanent gallery here at the Reagan Library. And we have it because in every single State of the Union address, President Reagan would spend the last few minutes talking about an American hero. And in our gallery, we reference some of the heroes President Reagan spoke about, such as the boys of Pointe du Hoc from Normandy on D-Day, the astronauts who lost their lives in the Challenger explosion. That anniversary was just a few weeks ago. But the gallery, we also wanted it to be contemporary. We talk about Medal of Honor recipients. We actually honor a docent who is no longer with us, but he was a World War II fighter pilot. But in the center of the room, we focus our story on 9/11. Of course, September 11th, 2001, terrorism struck our country when at first 2 planes hit the World Trade Center, and then of course other locations as well. Thousands of people lost their lives, including many first responders who rushed into the buildings as they were collapsing, trying to save people. And a few days after 9/11, as sort of the recovery process was happening, the cleanup process was happening, the fire department, the New York Fire Department, came across this 14-foot steel beam from the North Tower itself. And they stenciled on it NYFD 343 to reference the 343 New York firefighters who lost their lives that day. And then we were able to receive that object as a loan. I love it so much because, you know, obviously you have to protect artifacts, and everything you see when you come to the Reagan Museum is behind plexiglass or behind ropes. But the steel beam is sitting in the center of the room, completely open, and you can actually lay your hand on it. And I find it to be such a fitting way to remember what happened to our country, to never forget the lives lost. It's a really powerful statement of 9/11 and that messaging, which is one of the reasons why I love that artifact so much. So why don't we go to the screens? And then I will go back to some of the objects that I really love. So of course I have to grab my handy dandy glasses to see. Bamita, may he rest in eternal peace. Thank you. Greg Watkins Jr., happy 115th birthday in 2 days. Yes, on Friday, so 2 days from now, President Reagan would have turned 115, or the 76th anniversary of his 39th birthday. And we are doing a large event here at the Reagan Library. It's free, it's open to the public, it begins at 10:30 a.m. So either join us in public or watch the live stream here on YouTube. It's live music, it's a 21-gun salute, it's an honor guard, and keynote remarks by former Speaker of the House, Kevin McCarthy. William Hughes, Ronald Reagan was a great leader and president. Thank you so much. Alexis Giller agrees. Thank you, Alexis. Glad you're watching. I appreciate it. Wonder if you're in the shuttle. She's my daughter. Can we see the Berlin Wall? I missed it last time I was there. We'll find a time to do another one on the Berlin Wall. It's such a remarkable thing that we have here. So thank you, Alexis from San Francisco. I will be there for 115th Candlelight. Oh, I wonder if that means, Lisa, that you're actually one of our $115 donors. If you are, thank you so much. But we're glad you're coming here for the birthday. Please do keep, oh, John, your Commander-in-Chief, that's incredible. Thank you so much for your service. Please, everyone, do keep asking questions. Oh, I saw one more. Can you pop back up the one that was just there, and then I'll go back. Edward from Austin, Texas, would have loved to talk to him and ask what pushed him to run for president. And what keepsake for the USS Ronald Reagan do you all have in the library? We do have a section on peace through strength. We talk about that. And we sell a lot of items in our store related to peace through strength. Please keep those comments and questions coming. I'm going to go back to the screens pretty quickly. I have just, I think, maybe 2 more objects that I want to mention here on display before I go to the ones that are not on display, so ones you might want to see because you've never seen them before. The next one I want to talk about is in our gubernatorial gallery that features the 8 years Ronald Reagan was governor of California. It's called The Notes. Now, back in 2009 and 2010, we began a complete renovation for the Reagan Museum galleries that we reopened on February 6, 2011 for what would have been President Reagan's 100th birthday. And the team really wanted to find things that hadn't been shown before, stories that hadn't been told, objects that hadn't been seen. And staff literally found a box marked RR Desk that came from his Century City office after he passed away. And in going through that box, they found these notes. I think you're seeing them now. Basically, from the 50s, all the way through his presidency, President Reagan kept these 4x6 cards, both loose, sort of bound by a rubber band, as well as in what I kind of call a photo album flip book. And it was everything you could think of. It was amazing quotes that he loved from founding fathers like Lincoln or Washington, funny one-liner jokes, phrases, even things that he wanted to make sure he could show we were against, quotes from Stalin or Lenin or Marx. And when he was writing a speech or he was editing a speech, he would often go back to these note cards in this photo album and flip through to find the right quote that he wanted to insert into the speech. So not only are those note cards and that photo album flip book on permanent display in the gubernatorial gallery, the Reagan Foundation turned the notes into a book called The Notes, which we do sell in our museum store, reaganlibrary.com/store. You might be seeing that on your screen as well. And it's such a fascinating way to watch how his mind worked. And we laugh because he wrote so small. There is not an inch of white space on any of these cards, and there was no index system. So how he found anything, we have no idea, but he seemed to know how it worked, and he was always able to use those cards. So the last item I want to talk about that's on permanent display, then I will go back to the screens and start talking about items that are not on display. So as you can imagine, the President of the United States receives so many gifts from heads of state, from the public, from members of Congress, whatever it might be. And we have so many of them here in our collections. And we do have a section in our permanent gallery where we show some of the gifts that President Reagan received while in office. And I find this one interesting and bizarre and odd, which is just so fun. Of course, a president is going to receive many portraits. Painting, pencil sketches, charcoal, you name it. But President Reagan received this portrait, which I think you're seeing now. It's not an ordinary portrait. It is a portrait of Ronald Reagan made out of butterfly wings. You heard me right, made out of butterfly wings, and the frame is made from kola nuts. It was a gift from Andre Dioudon Kolingba, the president of the Central Africa of Republic. So why don't we go back to the screens one more time, and then we'll start talking about items that are not on display that I love so much that are down in our archives. Valentin, how many former or current presidents have visited the museum? That is such a great question. When the Reagan Library opened in November of 1991, we're coming up on our, I believe, 35th anniversary, 5 presidents came for the opening. It was the first time in history 5 presidents had gathered in the same place at the same time. It has since happened, and I believe 6 presidents gathered. But it was Reagan. It was, oh my gosh, it was obviously his Vice President Bush, but President Bush, Nixon, Ford, and Carter, I believe. Alexis, I'm in the shuttle. Everyone's watching you. Hi, shuttle home from San Jose to San Francisco. I'm sorry that you're watching, but thank you so much for watching. Rick, hi from Illinois. I helped run sound for Nancy during a stop. That's amazing. Mr. Reagan was my first presidential election. Well, thank you for that. That is a really fun story. I hope you have some good memories of that. Joe, President Reagan inspired me when I was only 14 years of age to become a teacher and professor of American history. That is incredible, and thank you for your service to this nation being a teacher. That is not an easy job. Greg's favorite artifact is his uniform from the Santa Fe Trail. I don't believe we have any artifacts on display from the Hasty Heart. It's my favorite movie he was in. I have someone in the background from Curatorial, so if she thinks there is, she can wave at me, but I don't think, she's saying no. Thank you, Jennifer. Jennifer's our registrar. Perfect question for her. Kirk is from Texas. I have a pin he was wearing that was broken, and he took my grandmother's that was not broken. Oh my God, I love that story. Thank you, that is really cool. Please keep these questions coming. Ashley from Oregon. I can't see the full question, sorry. I'm currently reading God and Ronald Reagan by Paul Kengor. Great book. Great book. If we were to recommend a book, I'd probably recommend Peggy Noonan's When Character Was King. That is a great book as well. Keep these coming. I'm going to go back to those screens. But again, if you come to the Reagan Museum, you're going to see everything I talked about, so that's boring. How about some items that we have in our collections that are not on display? And I think it was hard to choose my favorites. I actually should have asked Jennifer to hear what her favorite was. That's what I should have done. One of my favorites is, speaking of birthdays, Friday is President Reagan's 115th birthday. But for his 75th birthday, then Vice President George H.W. Bush and his wife Barbara Bush gifted President Reagan what I hope you're seeing. It is a Denner footstool. It's a handcrafted footstool sporting a pair of knee-high leather riding boots by Denner as the feet of the stool, with a velvet-covered padded seat with the presidential seal on it. I think it's so much fun. I hope you got to see the photo of the president receiving it. Just such a great gift. Now, we talked about people giving the president weird gifts, like a portrait made out of butterfly wings. How about an 18-pound ball of yarn? It's another one of my favorites. 18-pound ball of yarn, 16 inches in diameter. I think you're seeing it right now. I apologize for my accent. I'm sure I'm mispronouncing this. It was wound by the Rancho Penasquitos Golden Age Club of Escondidos, California, sent to the president before the White House Conference on the Aging in 1981. I'm not the only one who loves this artifact. It has been loaned out a handful of times to other presidential museums. It's such a fun artifact to have. Now, I mentioned that the archives has all these items of things that were gifted to the Reagans, or speeches he gave, or photos that were taken of him. Our archives also has something quite peculiar, something that was owned by the Reagans, not given to the Reagans. I think you're seeing it right now. It is a Ford Ranch wagon. It's Mrs. Reagan's actual station wagon that she owned and drove in the 1970s. For those who don't know, the Ford wagons first became popular in the 50s. They were made between 1952 and 1974, and this vehicle is literally in our archives, which I think is so cool. I do have a handful more, but let's go to the screens one more time, just to see if there's anything new out there. Hi from Petaluma. It says at Tom Rocca, but I'm thinking it's my sister Dana. I love when my family watches. So whether it's Dana or Tom, thank you for watching. I so appreciate it. That might be the last new one. Oh, Lisa, I love Nancy Reagan's funny outfit on display. Absolutely. Mrs. Reagan was known for her fashion. When President Reagan first took office, Mrs. Reagan got a lot of heat from the media for these designer gowns she was wearing. So she went to an event called the Gridiron Dinner. She didn't even tell President Reagan, and she showed up in all mismatched clothes from like the Salvation Army, Goodwill, things like that, to make fun of herself, and that sort of warmed the media to her, and we have that outfit that she wore to the Gridiron Dinner on display. So I only have 3 more items I want to talk about before we move on. And this is actually, the reason why I love this artifact so much is because as part of my job in marketing and doing social media, I'm always in the photo collection. And I always come across photos of Ronald Reagan with this object that is in our archives, and it is the official tax axe. You should be seeing it right now. It was gifted to President Reagan by Senator Jeremiah Denton of Alabama at a fundraising event in June of 1985. He then actually used it as a prop during a speech before the Chamber of Commerce in Alabama in July of 1986. So much fun. Okay, again, gifts of all types, all sizes. How about a doghouse made for President and Mrs. Reagan's dog Rex that literally looks like the White House? I think you're seeing it now. The White House doghouse was designed specifically for Rex by Mrs. Stephen Hayes. It includes a separate standing flagpole with a U.S. flag, a bed, a parquet floor, a doorbell, and a window box. Now, Rex was a King Charles Cavalier Spaniel, and he couldn't always use the house because he often had to share it with the Reagan grandchildren when they came and visited. Now, this is another artifact that I just love because of Ronald Reagan's sense of humor. It's a wooden desk sign, for lack of a better word. One side says yes, one side says no, one says maybe, and one says scram. I think you're seeing this right now. It's a hand-carved wooden sign, first gifted to President Reagan in May of 1984. He loved it so much, he used it in a handful of meetings, including, I think you're seeing the picture now, a June 1984 cabinet meeting with the Reagan-Bush Advisory Council. So we are going to go back to the screens to see if anyone else has said hello to me. The Jelly Bean portrait of Ronald Reagan. That is fantastic. That is made by the Jelly Belly Candy Company. It is in our Air Force One pavilion hanging. Anthony is reading The 3 Days in Moscow by Bret Baier. That is a great book. Bret Baier's entire 3 Days series are all fantastic. I would highly recommend them. Thank you guys for adding those comments. Keep them coming. I think I'm going to go back to the screen one more time. But the last thing I'm going to talk to you about in terms of things we're going to show today is a little bit different. It's not an actual artifact per se, but if you recall in the very beginning I talked about the 1.6 million photographs we have here. And that's the presidential photographs, meaning they're from 1981 to 1989 when Ronald Reagan was in office. We also have 50 to 100,000 photos of pre and post presidential images, including Ronald Reagan's time as governor of California. It's him on the campaign trail. It's family photos from President Reagan and Mrs. Reagan when they were little kids. Ronald Reagan on the swim team in high school or on the diving team. It's beautiful family portraits of Mrs. Reagan with her mother or the president with his mother. Just the most incredible pictures that the public really doesn't get to see because they're not part of the collection. So I thought that we would just show a handful of those photos from this personal private collection. I'm going to stop yammering for a few seconds. You are welcome, and please enjoy these photos. I hope you enjoyed that. Again, such a small subset of the amazing photographs we have. As we wrap this up, I will go to the screens one final time, but as we wrap this up, you know I love to tie items from our store that deals with what we're talking about here on our live from. Again, reaganlibrary.com/store. That's all you have to do. I've already mentioned the notes, but talking about some of the other things. So I started this by talking about the Amalfi Valentine. And so if you love the love story of Ronald and Nancy Reagan, you know, is such they never took each other for granted. They truly loved each other. Ronald Reagan was such a romantic. Then we recommend I Love You, Ronnie. This is a book by Mrs. Reagan. It is in our store. And it's a fantastic book. It's a touching collection of letters. It tells the story of a man and woman who truly loved each other. It's got charming photographs and sample love letters throughout the entire book. Now, the next thing I talked about when I was going through my favorite artifacts was the Margaret Thatcher page in the guest book at Blair House, again talking about President Reagan's funeral. Well, in 2024, to commemorate the 20th anniversary of President Reagan's passing, our store created these replica desk signs, basically, a desk plaque. It's a limited edition memorial desk plaque. It is a replica of President and Mrs. Reagan's memorial site, and written and engraved on this desk plaque are the exact same words that are on President Reagan's gravesite, which are words that he actually delivered at the opening of the Reagan Library in November of '91. I know in my heart that man is good, that what is right will always eventually triumph, and there is purpose and worth to each and every life. Just two more items to show you. The next item I talked about, or artifact I talked about, was the World Trade Center beam from the North Tower. And in our store, and hoping you see it on screen because this is really small and you won't see it in my hand, we sell a 9/11 Memorial Challenge coin. We first launched them in 2021, and the coin showcases the World Trade Center on the front, the Reagan Library seal on the back, and it's a solid brass coin 2 inches in circumference. Now, the last item from our store, again, reaganlibrary.com/store, that I'll talk about. So this whole live from is really about artifacts and the Reagan Museum and what you see here. So what better way to get the full story than our Reagan Library Museum guidebook, a beautiful 68-page full-color guidebook that walks you through basically every gallery, gallery by gallery, tells the story of that gallery, shows artifacts from that gallery. The photographs are just stunning. There's even a section on his funeral week. Highly recommend this guidebook, and it's very affordable. I want to say $14.95. Don't quote me on that, but something to that effect. As we wrap up, I again always appreciate you watching these. I'll go to the screens one final time. Not sure if anyone has chimed in who hasn't already. Greg, the Oval Office was really awesome. We have a full-scale replica Oval Office here at the Reagan Library. You tour through the exact same size, full size of the Oval Office, decorated as it was during Ronald Reagan's administration. And I think that might be it. So thank you guys for watching. Thank you for chatting with me. You know I love it so much. We know there's so many options for you out there. And that you choose us to watch these with us every month. We truly appreciate it. And again, don't forget to tune in on Friday at 10:30 a.m. Pacific to join us for President Reagan's 115th birthday if you can't come in person. Thank you so much. We'll see you next month.
The doors of this library are open now, and all are welcome. The judgment of history is left to you, the people. I have no fears of that, for we have done our best. And so I say, come and learn from it. My fondest hope is that Americans will travel the road extending forward from the arch of experience, never forgetting our heroic origins, never failing to seek divine guidance as we march boldly, bravely into a future limited only by our capacity to dream. May every day be a new beginning, and every dawn bring us closer to that shining city upon a hill. Thank you. God bless you all, and God bless America.